And earlier today, I interviewed two individuals who've been tracking this conflict very closely, two experts, Petro Burkoskyi, a strategic studies analyst based in Kiev, and Alexander Khrebet. He's an editor at a Ukrainian newspaper. And I asked them whether the ongoing talks are going to change the course of events. What are their expectations? The reason why Ukraine's allies don't seem to be on the same page. And Moscow's primary motives in this dispute. Is this just about Ukraine's NATO membership, or is there more to this than meets the eye? Here's what they told me. Let me ask you first. We've seen a lot of diplomacy since this morning, and we're going to see it for the rest of the week. The Russians have already said that they do not expect one meeting to change the course of events. What are your expectations from the meetings that are happening in Moscow and Washington, D.C.?
Well, I think that Russia has now three options. It has either to deliver its threat and invade Ukraine in order to show that it's serious about its threats. Secondly, it has to increase the tensions without giving up negotiations. And third, which also is possible and likely, is that they should pretend that they've got already what they wanted, and they would say that they would de-escalate. So right now, the old diplomacy of the Western world, of the United States, of the France, of the Germany, is aimed at persuading Russians not to start the war because of the severe economic consequences for its economy, and because Ukraine would not be left alone, that Ukraine would be helped and would be heavily assisted by the West in a military way. And right now, I think that it's time for diplomacy, another chance to persuade Vladimir Putin not to attack Ukraine, because it would lead to his own detriment.
Do you believe that Ukraine thinks it will not be left alone?
For sure, the last situation and the meetings we are having here and abroad is proving this. We are not alone, and today the support of the Western support of Ukraine is at the top level since we regain our independence.
I've been reading a lot of commentary on what Russia is doing and why it's doing, what are the motives of Moscow, and some say that this is not even about the NATO membership. Even if Ukraine were to freeze the NATO membership for another decade, Moscow will not leave Kiev alone. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I agree, because we have seen it for the last 8 years that any efforts that Ukraine has made to stop the war and some kind of reasonable conditions of the peace resolution it proposed to Russia, they all have been rejected. And what we have seen from the Russian history is that Vladimir Putin now tries to reinvent the Russian Empire, to restore the Russian Empire. And Ukraine, in the past times, Ukraine was the jewel in the crown of the Russian Empire. But our message from Ukraine is that forget about Russian Empire, it's in the past. And if you will continue to attack Ukraine, if you will continue to destabilize Ukraine, it can only bring the end of your regime. And we are very pleased, and we are really pleased that right now this opinion is also shared by most of our Western partners. If in 2014 they doubted that Ukraine can sustain a Russian invasion, right now they are pretty sure that Ukraine would defend itself and would defend not only its own sovereignty and freedom, but also defend the neighbors who are also being intimidated by Russia.
When you speak of your Western partners, from my understanding, I don't think they're all on the same page. We heard the Germans saying that America's effort to pull Ukraine in its own sphere of influence is creating instability in Europe, and we know that Olaf Scholz is in Washington, D.C. to shore up his image as much as to express support. Do you believe in that German assessment that the Americans are adding to the instability?
I don't think so, because the Germans usually they are partners with Russia. They have a historic ties with Russia, and Olaf Scholz is going to Washington. So they are going to talk about the sanctions and not lifting the sanctions, but imposing new sanctions on the pipeline Nord Stream 2, just in case Russia will invade again Ukraine. So, and of course they are not on the same page, but the majority of the Western allies within the NATO are on the Ukrainian side.
If you allow me, I will just compare the German policy to the current morning in the Kiev. It's chilling wind and you feel it, but the sun starts burning more and more and heating us more and more. That means in Germany we also are seeing the change of their position. They still do not want to supply arms to Ukraine, but today I think today will be the meeting between the German Chancellor and the President of the United States, and I think the key issue would be brought to the table, that the Nord Stream 2 the main pipeline which supplies gas to Germany would be halted and would be stopped if Russia decides to invade Ukraine. And that would mean the end for the Russian strategy of dividing Europe and making Germany a privileged partner. So really, we expect that this would be on the table and Germany finally would make a right decision.
Final question. What do you make of the American assessment that Kiev will fall in 48 to 72 hours?
I think we should think about it, but we also should remember that Americans thought that Afghanistan would stay for a month or 3 months and it fall just within the weeks. So we are not Afghanistan. We have a very long history of fighting against Russia. We have a history of fighting Russians and their troops in Donbass. So we will never surrender, and it won't happen in 72 hours, of course.
For sure, it will not have. They will not take the Kiev within 72 hours because the Russian troops, they didn't manage to take the Donetsk airport, which is just in the same amount of the kilometers from the Russian border, but in the east of Ukraine. So they took only the debris of the Donetsk airport within more than 240 days. So it's impossible for the Russian army to take the Kiev within 72 hours. Just no.
Your optimism is inspiring. Thank you very much, Petro Alexander, for talking to us.
Much.
Thank you for India's interest in us.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.